For almost 4,000 years, the Great Pyramids of Giza was the tallest structure in the world. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, it took 10 years of preparation and 20 years of construction to stack the estimated 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks into its final form. If we believe Herodotus, that means one stone would have to be put in place every 5 minutes. Even today, with our modern technology, it would be difficult to pull off what the Egyptians did. But why were the pyramids really built? And how were they built? There is still a ton of speculation, still many questions that haven't been answered. Explanations have been given but never proven. Alien tech, electrical generators, tombs, astronomical observatories. We might never know exactly why they were built or how. But here are some of the wildest theories. The most advanced civilization of its time. One of the most fascinating things about the pyramids, and the Great Pyramid in particular, is just how precise they are. Imagine back 3,000 or 4,000 years ago to when the pyramids at Giza stood in glorious towering geometry. Their white limestone facades were smooth and perfectly angled. They peeked up from the banks of the Nile, testaments to the might of the pharaohs and technological mastery of ancient Egypt. Two of the pyramids at Giza, the Great Pyramid and the Pyramid of Khafra, are almost perfectly aligned along the cardinal points, each side facing north, south, east, and west with near precision accuracy. The Great Pyramid's alignment is accurate to a remarkable 1/15 of 1 degree. How did the Egyptians do it? Well, there's no real consensus on how they did it. One theory suggests they used the pole star to figure out the alignment. However, back when the Great Pyramid was built, there was no pole star. This is because of something called precession. The Earth wobbles a bit on its axis, and because of this wobble, the stars in the sky seem to change their positions over time. 4,000 years ago, there were two stars rotating around the North Pole, Mizar in the Big Dipper and Kochab in the Little Dipper. There was a period of time when these two stars aligned perfectly around the North Pole, but over time they drifted apart. Some astronomers and Egyptologists say this can explain how later pyramids were aligned at different angles than their predecessors, following the paths of these two stars as they seem to drift through the sky due to our wobbly planet. Another theory suggests that the Egyptians used the equinoxes to figure it out. During the fall and spring equinoxes, day and night are equal, and the sun sits directly above the equator. Back in 2016, an archaeologist named Glenn Dash stuck a rod on a platform during the fall equinox and measured its shadow throughout the day. The points he collected created an arc. He then took a piece of string, attached it to the rod, and created a circle. The 2 points where the circle and the arc met were almost perfectly aligned east to west, with a slight counterclockwise deviation. The Great Pyramid and the Pyramid of Khafra both have the same slight counterclockwise angle. Coincidence? Connected to the stars. Were the Egyptians aware of our wobbly Earth? Maybe. They most probably observed the stars changing positions in the sky. But in order to understand the true magnitude of precession, they would have to track these changes over hundreds and even thousands of years. This could certainly have been possible. Ancient Egypt lasted for thousands of years. However, there are certain clues that could be hidden within the architecture of the Great Pyramid itself. First, let's go over some basic ground rules of precession. As already mentioned, the Earth's wobble on its axis makes it seem like the stars and constellations move across the sky over time. Every 72 years, the position of the stars and constellations in the sky shifts 1 degree. A complete precessional cycle takes a long time. If you measured the positions of the stars in the sky today, it would take about 26,000 years, 25,772 to be exact, for them to be in exactly the same place again. It seems impossible that the Egyptians could have been aware of this incredibly long-term event that our modern society has only figured out with the help of computer models. For one thing, the first known written account of precession came from the Greek astronomer Hipparchus in the 1st century BC, when he observed that the stars had shifted from earlier Babylonian measurements. Some think the evidence that ancient Egyptians knew about precision might be hidden in the architecture of the Great Pyramid. There are some numbers that pop up when certain angles and lengths are measured that have some connections to precisional numbers. For example, the sum of the two base diagonals of the pyramid's edges adds up to just around 26,000 inches, and the distance between the ceiling of the king's chamber and the apex of the pyramid is also around 26,000 inches. The problem is that these measurements are made in units called pyramid inches. This is a controversial measurement used by pyramidologists who claim it was used in ancient times. However, no proof has ever been found that it was actually used. Pyramidology in general has often been criticized as pseudo-scientific and connected to various ideas like how the pyramids are some sort of alien tech, which we'll get to, or some kind of energy generators, which we'll also get to. Alien tech? Of course, there are always the theories that the pyramids were built by aliens or represent some sort of attempt to communicate with them. There's a faction of pyramidologists who say that some of the numerological stuff mentioned earlier is proof that extraterrestrials came to Earth and gave ancient humans the mathematical and technical knowledge to construct the pyramids, or else constructed them themselves. For example, Erich von Däniken, a well-known proponent of alien astronaut theory, gives proof that when the height of the Pyramid of Cheops is multiplied by 1,000 million, you get the distance of the Earth from the Sun. Then there are the strange relief carvings that many alien astronaut theorists cite as proof of alien contact with the Egyptians. Did aliens give the Egyptians an extraterrestrial flashlight? A relief deep within the Hathor temple in Dendera, called the Dendera Light, shows a man holding what looks a whole lot like a flashlight. Near the beam is something that looks a whole lot like the porcelain insulators you get on electrical power lines, or in comic books depicting alien technology. What's more, in the dark depths of the temple, no soot from torches have been found. How could they have seen down there? Another called the helicopter hieroglyph really looks like a helicopter or some sort of spaceship. Were the ancient Egyptians visited by cosmic travelers? It turns out that the helicopter is actually made from two different hieroglyphs, one plastered over the other. Separately, they look nothing like any alien tech, but together they do. Interpreting images like these is highly speculative. We tend to see what we want to see, especially when we're looking back with a modern eye at something made thousands of years ago. The biggest generator in history. Some other pyramidologists claim that the Great Pyramid could have been some sort of electrical generator. And we know you're thinking it. Is this a claim made by a bunch of stoners waxing philosophy through clouds of smoke? Well, maybe not. For one thing, the pyramid does not look like your average tomb. There are no hieroglyphs. There's no art, no sign that humans actually used it in any kind of ceremonial way. Those who have entered the bowels of the Great Pyramid have described it as almost industrial, like it was some sort of machine. Was it? The Great Pyramid is built from 3 types of stone arranged in a way that could have made it a pretty good electrical generator. The huge slabs that make up the interior shafts and the king's chamber are granite. Granite is slightly radioactive and can ionize or electrify the air. Dolomite limestone makes up the main girth of the pyramid. Dolomite has a high magnesium content and is a good electrical conductor. The outer layer, most of which has now fallen away, is made of Tura limestone, which has no magnesium and acts as a great insulator. The whole thing kinda resembles a pyramid-shaped version of an electrical wire, with a conductor inside and an insulator outside. But all this doesn't really amount to anything if there's no energy source. However, the Earth's rotation generates weak electromagnetic current every day that follow the sun. These are called telluric currents. They flow along the surface and just below the surface of the planet, and are created when charges move to attain equilibrium between areas of differing electric potentials. At certain points around the world, these telluric currents intersect and create what are called conductivity discontinuities. where one part of the ground that has better electrical conduction meets another part that has less conductivity. The interaction between the two creates a charge. Apparently, the Giza plateau is home to one of these conductivity discontinuities, but still the charges are relatively weak. To create a pyramid generator, the Egyptians needed a little more juice. It turns out that the Great Pyramid is built over an underground limestone aquifer. Each year, the Nile River floods and recedes, creating a flow of water in the porous limestone under the pyramids. This flow of water in and out, up and down beneath the pyramids could theoretically produce oscillations that could generate electricity. The golden ratio. The golden ratio is found all over the place, in nature and architecture. Basically, it functions like this. If you have a line segment and you cut the line into two pieces that have certain lengths, the ratio of the whole thing to the longer part is the same as the ratio of the longer part to the shorter part. This ratio is 1 to 1.618. It can also be expressed in what's called the Fibonacci sequence, which counts from 0 to 1 to 1 to 3 to 5 to 8 to 13, and on into infinity by taking the sum of the previous two numbers to find the next number. So 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, and so on. If you expand the golden ratio out into geometry, you get the golden spiral, like in a nautilus shell, or sunflower or artichoke, or even a hippie's tie-dyed t-shirt. The golden ratio is even found in the lengths between the joints of our fingers. Many think the Great Pyramid expresses the golden ratio through its architecture. The ratio of the Great Pyramid's slant height, the length of its four outer edges from base to top, to half of its base length is 1.61809, almost exactly the golden ratio. Are these signs that the ancient Egyptians really had advanced knowledge of math? The golden ratio wasn't known to us moderns until the late 1700s. However, it's been found in Greek architecture and many other sites as well. Finding these mathematical, numerological connections within the architecture of ancient marvels might make it feel like the ancient Egyptians were smarter than a college physics professor. Or it might just be a coincidence. There's a thing called pareidolia, which is a fancy name for our tendency to create meaning out of randomness, like seeing a cloud shaped like a dinosaur. It could be that we're just projecting these numbers onto the pyramids in much the same way. The pyramids are full of mysteries we may never solve. Maybe all we can do is appreciate them for what they are and enjoy the speculation surrounding them. As always, thank you for watching Weirdly Interesting. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more weirdly interesting content.